Hello YouTube, Dave here again. Welcome to day 3 of our 5-day look at the Dungeon Command series. So in the last few days I've done the unboxing for Heart of Cormyr as well as Sting of Lolth. And today we're going to be looking at the Tyranny of Goblins. So I believe this was the third set to come out after the first two were released simultaneously. So this one features basically goblinoids and some other big creatures like you can see. A devil there, horn devil I think it is. So let's just have a quick look at the packaging, because again the artwork is really fantastic. You've got a goblin on a wolf, the horn devil itself, and you've got a hobgoblin, looks like kind of a wizard or sorcerer type of thing. With a goblin here, looks like he's got a dagger, probably more of a roguish type. And on the sides, we've got some of the miniatures here, so it looks like a wolf, goblin with an axe, and there's the horn devil. Just on the tab here, we've got again just the wolf riding goblin, which is the same on the top. Now on the back, it says dominate the battlefield. Dungeon Command is a head-to-head, so that's all the same as the other ones. It's the Tyranny of Goblins faction pack. Contains a complete goblin warband. So again, just a little preview of what's inside. However, let's just kind of skip right to it here and open this up and have a look. So the rule book was the first thing that I really noticed about this, because I was kind of expecting there to be maybe not necessarily some errata, but to have some new things, maybe have some new scenarios. I was kind of really looking forward to that for these purposes. Like I was really hoping to get some more stuff. But it is literally a reprint of the original books that came with the other two sets. So they don't even change up the miniatures or the cards that they show. It's really disappointing. Now also, one thing I'd like to point out is the rulebook here is green. The Heart of Cormyr had sort of a yellowish color to it, and the Sting of Lolth had sort of a purplish color to it, or burgundy. And both of the rulebooks had the same colors on the front and back. This one here has the goblin green, but it has the same coloration as the Heart of Cormyr, and I think we're going to see that with pretty much all of them. So literally nothing new, and to me that was sort of a missed opportunity. It would have been cool to have had some scenarios, some things that you could do with it, but unfortunately that's what happened there. I'll just set that aside. As for the tiles, I think this is the first one that we see that has doors on it. So these doors, I think you have to spend an extra square of movement to get through, and they also block line of sight. So if you have an enemy here, and you're here, or on this side I should say, then you can't, they can't see you if you're fully on the other side. Now again, we also have the wilderness, which has like a little briar thing there, which is difficult terrain or hazardous terrain with the damage, and you've got some shrubs here that actually also block line of sight with the treasure thing behind it, which is kind of cool. So again, they kind of have mirror the similar features there. The starting tile, and this starting tile actually has, again, hazardous terrain on it, so something to be a little bit careful of. I actually like the forest side, so I think when I set these up I'm going to show that one off. Now this one also has a magic circle, which is pretty cool. So you got like the altar, treasure pile, you got some steps leading up, so they count as difficult terrain as well. And just on this side, similar thing, you got a magic circle, treasure, difficult terrain, terrain that blocks line of sight. And this one here just has a treasure room, so you got the treasure room there, the doors block line of sight. And this one here, you actually have a little camp space there, or a cave that you can hide some stuff in. So again, these would make some pretty cool tiles for the role-playing game if you wanted to use them for that. And let's just move this stuff aside, and let's set up the wilderness tiles. Just because I like the wilderness side, and I don't think I've ever actually used, believe it or not, the wilderness side for this set. So let's move on to the miniatures. The first one that we have here is the Goblin Cutter. And the paint's not terrible. It's pretty basic, just three colors if you include the dagger. But again, not too bad. I like that. We'll just put him there. And of course there's two of the cutters, so I'm not going to show them both off in details. Another one that there are two of is the Hobgoblin if it'll show up here, the Hobgoblin Soldier. He looks pretty decent, although the eyes, I don't know how well it's going to focus there, but he's kind of got the crazy eyes going. He's got the teeth showing there, which actually I never really looked too closely at this guy before. And again, sort of has the similar color to the cutters. And he's got just this giant greatsword, which is pretty cool. We'll put him there. And of course, like I said, there are two of those. So I'm not going to worry too much about that. Let's finish off the goblins here. So we've got a goblin archer. Again, very basic coloration. Would have been nice if they did a little bit of detail work on the shield itself. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, but you know that's okay. Again, the bow and arrows not really painted too much either. But these are, you know, like I've always said, these are like mass-produced type of things that you know, they weren't going to spend a lot of time. I think they basically had like an assembly line where everyone had like one color or one part of the miniature to paint, and they just kind of kept going down the line. So now we have the Goblin Champion, and get it to focus here. Can always seem to take a while. It's always a bit of an issue. There we go. So the Goblin Champion, yellow eyes, yellow teeth, and the axe there. So again, pretty cool looking guy. And the last goblin is the Goblin Wolf Rider. Sometimes I just want to make sure that they have the names that I remember them as having, because I don't really play the goblins a lot. But he's pretty cool looking. Again, he's got sort of the angry face going on there. He's got his short sword drawn as he's on the back of a wolf. And speaking of, there is also an individual wolf miniature, and this one actually looks pretty good. The dry brushing work on here is pretty decent. I've always liked personally painting things with fur on them. You know, the teeth look good. This is actually a really nice looking miniature for, again, something that's kind of like a mass-produced type of thing. So we'll put him there. All right. Up next is the, whoops, dropped it, is the Bugbear Berserker. And unfortunately his axe kind of is on a permanent bend there, but again, he's pretty cool looking. Just got like the leather armor look going. Again, the dry brushing's not bad. A little spot on the arm that they kind of messed up on, but again, not a huge issue. Would have been nice to have seen some different colorations on the axe. Like the axe head looks fine, but it would have been nice to have seen, like, you know, the wooden handle and stuff like that. But again, these are minor things. At the time, you know, to get 12 miniatures and a game and tiles and all that stuff, you know, I think it was $45 wasn't a terrible price, but you know, you kind of expect to have some of these things that aren't super detailed, which is, again, you know, fine. All right, last of our medium-sized creatures. This is the Hobgoblin Sorcerer, so we saw him on the box. And he's got, looks like the yellow eyes going on there. He's got the angry face. And again, actually this isn't bad. I actually like this one. You know, they actually did differentiate between the symbol on his robe and the robe itself, which is good. A little bit of mist paint down there, but again, that's fine. Pretty decent looking guy. We'll put him inside the treasure room where he's safe. Now we got our two large creatures, and this is where most of the detail and the best paint jobs actually come in. So the first one I'm going to show off is the Troll. Now this guy's awesome looking, and just a fantastic job. You know, you actually see it looks like a little bit of shading. It may just be where the paint kind of thin, but it looks like a lot more attention to detail went into these large figures, which is really nice. The only thing that they didn't do was color the skull, but that's okay. I just kind of assume that he, you know, cooked it in a fire or something like that, and or because somebody tried to use fire against him, he burnt their skull and put it on. But the cloth actually is, you know, again, nicely dry brushed, and it's pretty decent. Like I said, I actually really like this miniature. I think this one looks great. Love the Troll. And we'll put him in there as well. And then the last one, of course, is the Horn Devil, which again looks pretty cool. Actually, hold on just a second, because There we go. Sorry, I just had to get up for a second. Because I actually have the D&D Minis equivalent. So I actually have the Horn Devil that came out for D&D, the D&D Minis game. And I gotta be honest, I actually kind of like the brighter colors, on like the chest and the horns. So I actually like that a little bit better. I mean, this one looks a little more kind of muted and stuff, and it has a little bit more detail there on the sides of the face. But I actually really like this one a lot better. So just as a comparison, because I don't have a lot of the ones that duplicate, but here we go. And these, of course, were both, or this was a rare miniature back in the day. So I'm assuming the troll probably was as well. But again, just a little bit of a side by side if you wanted to see what they look like. And we'll put him right in the magic circle. All right. So the last part that we're going to look at here would be the cards. So again, unfortunately, like the other ones, just from, and this was again being like on a third floor apartment, so it wasn't like in a damp basement or anything, but again, you've got the cards that are pretty badly warped. I want to try to get sleeves. I don't know if I mentioned that before, but I want to try to get sleeves for everything and see if that will help straighten them out. I've tried bending them back the other way, but they always seem to go right back to the curl there. But you got the ones for the cooperative board games. The troll, which is again pretty cool because you pass this around to other players, and this is one that would work well in Wrath of Ashardalon, I think, or Legend of Drizzt. Those two board games, these guys would be really cool for. So that's them. All right, next we'll move on to the creature cards, and I'm just going to organize these. Just give me a second here. All right. Basically, what I just want to do is get the like ones together and the ones that don't have much abilities at the beginning here. Alright, sorry about that. So here we have the Goblin Archer. So he's level 1, 10 hit points. He's got a ranged attack that does 20 damage, but it's only within 5 squares. And he has no base melee attack. So that's pretty unique. If you use order cards that deal extra damage for melee attack, then he can do that, but this guy is really kind of boned if anybody gets in melee range with him. And then, speed of 6 and dexterity. We got our Hobgoblin Soldiers. So they're level 3 with 70 hit points. They have Constitution. They're goblins, or hobgoblins, humanoids. They have a melee attack for 20 and a speed of 6 and no special abilities. So they're kind of a little bit boring, but they do have solid amount of hit points for what they are. Goblin Cutter's up next, level 1, dexterity, 10 hit points. Just a melee attack for 10, speed of 6, but this creature's melee attack deals plus 10 damage against tapped creatures. So you kind of want to move them in as support, and of course there are 2 of those. The Goblin Champion, level 3, 50 hit points. He's a humanoid goblin. He's got dexterity and charisma. 20 melee attack, speed of 6, and as a flanker, this creature's melee attack deals plus 10 damage while at least one allied creature is adjacent to the target. So again, pretty good for that. Then we got the Goblin Wolf Rider. So he's level 4, dexterity and charisma, beast, humanoid, goblin, and wolf. 80 hit points, speed of 8. And Rider. So when this creature is destroyed, you can immediately deploy one goblin or wolf creature of level 3 or lower in the square that it occupied. So when this dies, it replaces itself. So you could put the Goblin Champion in its place, for example, or you could place the wolf if you have that. So it's level 2, dexterity, 40 hit points. It's a beast. It's wolf, 8 speed, and its ability is whenever a target creature takes damage from this creature's melee attack, tap the target. So it's a way of kind of tapping things down if your opponent doesn't have order cards, or was saving an order card for something that does more than 10 damage. You may be able to try to convince them to use that, so you could say move up your Goblin Cutter and get a shot in there for an extra 20. So a little bit of strategy to use there. Then we got the Bugbear Berserker. So he is level 4, Bugbear Berserker, Humanoid bugbear, he's got 90 hit points, a speed of 7, he uses strength, dex, and con. He has an attack for 20, and his special ability is whenever an adjacent enemy creature is destroyed, untap this creature. So basically, I think what it means is that if something gets destroyed, even if he's not the one that destroys it, you untap him and he can once again use like order cards and things like that. So he can be pretty dangerous to have on the field. Then we got the Hobgoblin Sorcerer. So he's got Intelligence, Charisma, Humanoid, Hobgoblin, 40 hit points. He's got a ranged attack that does 20 at 10 squares, melee attack that does 10, and he's got 2 special abilities, speed of 6. That's not one of the special abilities, but while this creature's in a magic circle, sorry, it's just one ability, but when he's standing in a magic circle, all goblins, hobgoblins, and bugbears you control gain the ability to tap to prevent 10 damage to this creature from one source. So they can tap to reduce it by 10, which isn't huge, but again, it's not a bad ability for something that you can do without spending order cards. Alright, last 2. Feral Troll. Level 5, he's got 120 hit points. He's a humanoid troll before they were classified as giants. Strength and Constitution, melee attack for 30, and he regenerates 10. So at the start of its controller's turn, this creature heals 10 damage, and a speed of 6. So he's pretty good. If he gets hurt, you can just kind of try to keep him away from enemies for a few turns to regenerate damage, which is really great. And then we got the Horn Devil. So he's level 6, Constitution, Charisma, 140 hit points, 40 damage on a melee attack. He's got a speed of 6, and he flies, so he ignores difficult terrain and hazardous terrain and all that. And reach 2, so he can actually, creatures 2 spaces away count as adjacent to this creature. And you can tap him as a standard action, make a melee attack. If the target takes damage from this attack, you tap it. So there's a few different enemies or units in this game that work about tapping enemy creatures. So again, there's only one creature, the Goblin Cutter. The lowly level 1 Goblin Cutter is the only one that takes advantage of that by default. Let's just have a look through the order cards. Now these aren't in any particular order, but we'll just kind of go through. And again, if you want to read what they do, I'm only going to focus on a few of them. But we've got Reckless Attack. So you take damage to deal plus 30. Not the greatest. Grovel, lose 1 morale to prevent 30, so this replaces the Cowering ability, which is you lose 1 morale for each 10 points. You just lose 1 morale to reduce by 30. That's not bad, actually. There's a couple of those. Rally. Undaunted Surge. Ray of Frost. I'm going to set these aside for a reason. Death Sentence. Goblin Warcry, and Portal Stone, another Death Sentence. One creature you control within 5 squares makes a melee attack. Okay, that's a minor action, so those aren't bad at all. Arcane Scroll. So this one I want to talk about a little bit. There's a reason why I'm setting the intelligence on the side. So Arcane Scroll, you attach this card to the creature. Remove this card to give the creature intelligence ability for the next order card you play on it. So we'll kind of set that aside. Now it didn't work quite the way that I thought it did when I originally got this. But anyway, Leap Away. Shattered Weapon, so you deal plus 30, but then you attach this card and you're permanently doing 10 less. Which actually, it wouldn't be so bad if you use this on the Archer, come to think of it, because they already do 0 as it is. Reinforcements. Discard any number of creature cards from your hand, then reshuffle all creature cards from your graveyard into your creature deck and draw creature cards up to your creature hand size. So this is a card that makes the goblins kind of work, just because you want to overwhelm with numbers. So the fact that they're so weak and weeny and easy to kill, which, you know, it's fine because they do it's low morale if they lose them, because most of the goblins are like level 1. But it's nice to have the ability to, again, just overwhelm with numbers. Speaking of which, we got Strength in Numbers, which increases leadership. Forward the Horde. Shift 3 squares, and then you shift another one of your allied creatures. Narrow Escape. Tough as Nails. Another Relentless Attack. Another Narrow Escape. Undaunted Surge. Another strength in numbers, so they have a way to increase their leadership. Acrobatics, so this creature gains scuttle, which is actually pretty cool. Looping stride, or lopping stride, add +2 to their speed. Mage hand. Patch up. And there's 2 of those, just heal damage, or prevent 20 damage. Another shattered weapon. Mortal wound. So prevent all damage to this creature card from one source. Attach this card to this creature and you destroy it at the start of your deploy phase. So this one I've never really fully understood why you would want to use it, unless having it go that way prevents your opponent from gaining them, or prevent you from losing the morale, but I don't think that's the case. So I think it's just a way to essentially get him for an extra turn, so that if it's something big, you can still get at least one more set of actions in before it dies. You'd obviously only want to do that when they were going to die anyway. Goblin Warcry, Nimble Strike, Feral Vitality, Acrobatics. Whoops, sorry. Another Looping Stride, or Lopping Stride, or whatever you have your pronounce that. Forward the Horde, and Mirror Image. Alright, so there's a reason that I kind of set these ones aside here. So when it comes to intelligence cards, there is literally only one guy that has it, so that's the Hobgoblin Sorcerer. So I, originally when I first started playing this, I had the Arcane Scroll. I didn't read the whole thing, I just thought, you know, it had intelligence, and I kind of stopped reading there, that's sort of my own fault. But I would give it to something like, you know, the Troll, or I would give it to the Horn Devil, to let them use some of the intelligence things. So the scenarios that I've come into is not having this, for starters, in my hand, not having this guy in my hand, and for order cards having like all 3 of these in my hand at one time. So there are situations where some of these order cards are going to be kind of useless. So you got 3 things here. None of them are like seriously damaging. Although this one here deals 30 damage. So this one you can remove the card to prevent all damage, and choose a treasure square within 5 squares. Reveal any treasure marker on it, and then take 1 treasure, or you can tap a creature. So, you know, I guess a lot of these things do have cards that are only good for 1 or 2 guys, or 1 or 2 of the models, but you've got sort of all these depend on sort of having the Sorcerer out, or having an Arcane Scroll and getting to use 1 of them. So I'm not a huge fan of the way that worked out, the way that they did that. Only because there was more than one situation where I just didn't have the Sorcerer out, or the only Arcane Scroll in there. If they would have had like 2 copies of Arcane Scroll, it would be easier to get. So there were times that I had like a handful of order cards that were just relatively useless. One last thing, because I completely forgot to do these, are the commanders. So we've got, we'll start with Tarkon Drawl. So he starts with 12 morale, 8 leadership. He's got a creature hand of 3, starting order hand of 5, and his special ability is Black Hand of Bane. Whenever an enemy creature cowers, its controller loses 1 extra morale. This is probably never going to get used. I've only ever cowered once in the dozen or so games that I played with this. My opponents have never used the cower rules. So this ability, unfortunately, is probably rarely, if ever, going to get used. So this guy's not so great. But as far as his flavor text goes, is Tarkon Drawl is a king without a throne. A devout follower of Bane, Tarkon believes that he is on the path to becoming an emperor. With the blessing of his god, his certainty in his belief is his greatest, or his certainty in his certainty in this belief is his greatest weakness. It's hard to read through the lens here. He feels he can do no wrong, and his overconfidence in his plans keep him from spotting their flaws. And his quote is, "Come now, see. The enemy's flank collapses under attack, just as I promised. Our victory is all but assured." So I've never actually used this guy again, because this ability is probably never, or very rarely ever, going to come into play. It's just basically a way of ensuring that your opponent's never going to use Cower. The one that I do like, however, is Snig the Axe. He's sort of like an iconic D&D minis line. Mini, they had like Snig the Axe as a miniature, and then they had him on a wolf, which is pretty cool. So he's got 14 morale, so he's got higher morale, but less leadership. He only has 6 leadership. But his special ability is Horde. You can deploy creatures during your refresh phase, which is at the beginning of the round. So that means he'd actually be able to go with them as well. So this is actually a pretty good ability. He has 5 creature cards for his hand and 4 order cards. And his quote is, "No one is really sure whether Snig is the goblin or the axe, but either way, Snig has managed to survive battles that would lay low any other goblin. He has no fear of danger, much to the detriment of his followers. He has had to rebuild his warband more than once because the rest of his warriors died in battle." And his quote is, "Snig doesn't have time for this. Snig needs to kill something now." So you gotta love Snig the Axe. He's just so cool. So that is the Tyranny of Goblins faction pack. Overall, this is my least favorite of all the warbands that they have for the game. It's the one that I really try to play the least, mainly because, again, your goblins are so. I mean, you've got 3, one fourth of your warband only has 10 hit points. And if there were ways to basically be able to recast these guys, or for example, if say the goblin cutters, you could either bring them back, from the graveyard, or have a commander who, your level 1 goblin creatures, or any creature that has only 10 max HP, doesn't cause you to lose morale when they're defeated, then these guys might be alright. There is a way, of course, to reshuffle your discarded or your defeated creatures and your creature hand into your creature deck and redraw stuff. But again, it's just so easy to lose. I mean, there's 3 morale right there that just, 1 attack each, and these guys aren't worth trying to save either. And it's just not easy to bring them back. So I don't find that they work quite as well. The Hobgoblin soldiers are alright, but again, it would have been nice to have had some sort of special ability. They're just kind of damage. The Goblin Champion is fine, I like him. But again, there's no real cards. So for example, you got a bunch of stuff that taps guys. You got like the Wolf, you got the Chain Devil, but the only things in the deck, or in this faction set, that actually take advantage of a tapped creature are your level 1 guys that, probably won't survive long enough to get one of these things out unless you start with one. And I didn't recall seeing any of the order cards in here that would have said, deal this amount of damage, or, this amount if creature's already tapped. So it just doesn't seem to be the most synergistic of the warbands. The miniatures are great. I love the miniatures. I've used the miniatures tons, for the goblins, because I do like to use goblins, especially at lower levels. So the miniatures are great. Love them. I love the board, and I've seen other people play these and have better luck than I did. Like I said, I usually end up getting stuck with order cards that I just can't use, which usually sucks because, again, you got 3 intelligence things that only 1 guy can use, and it's like I said, it just doesn't feel like the most tightly designed of the warbands. It just doesn't feel like it works the way that it should. I would probably, if I ever went to build a warband, I would probably use these guys as extra troops, and I've thought of some scenarios that I might put up on my Patreon page if anybody's interested in seeing that, where you can do like mercenaries and stuff like that. But anyway, that is Tyranny of Goblins. Again, sort of the weakest of the factions as far as the competitive game goes. They're still fun to play if you can get the order cards right. And like I said, everyone that I've played against that's played the Goblins has had better luck with them than I ever have. So maybe there's something to that. But again, they're great just to have the Goblin miniatures, and of course the Troll and the Devil look great. So again, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time.